right, good morning, everybody. Today is Wednesday, May 14th, 2014, and this is Before the First Cup with Jules on UCY.TV. I always have to do that. Good morning. Hope everyone's doing all right. It is me solo, at least for hour number one. We have Mr. Drew Lamb who's going to join us for hour number two to talk about aquaponics farming and how we can protect ourselves from radiation using supplements. Something that, back in the very beginning we all talked about quite a bit, but I don't think we've done a show on that in quite a while. So might be some surprises and things you don't know. I know yesterday I was dropping some things into chat during Libby's show when she was talking about some of the different isotopes, and there are ways to protect yourself from strontium and that. So we're going to talk about that. That'll be fun. I just saw a post as I logged in and fired things up from Science Alert, which is a website and a Facebook page. And I thought this was pretty interesting, talking about chemicals and their effects on your bodies. Scientists have found that the best times to drink coffee are when your cortisol levels are naturally down, which is between 9:30 and 11:30 a.m. Hey, look, it's Eastern time, by the way. Well, I guess any time. Maybe that's sun time. 9:30 and 11:30 on the East Coast. You're right with me. And between 1:30 and 5 p.m., which is why that afternoon cup of coffee always feels so good, I'm sure. So I don't know, interesting observation. Let's see. I'll go to the article. And we can look at this. We always need to learn about coffee. I don't think we know enough about coffee, the wonder drug. Alright. The best time to drink coffee according to science. Why the best time to drink coffee is not first thing in the morning. Well, unless you're me, and make it down here exactly in time at 9 a.m. I'm gonna save this coffee picture. Hold on, this is a good one. There we go. Oh, damn. How could I possibly already have this picture? I've never seen this picture before, and it says I do. So it's just add a 2 to the end. There we go. Alright. Drinking a cup of coffee first thing in the morning blunts the energy boosting effects of caffeine and may lead to increased tolerance of the stimulant. This counterintuitive fact is explained in engaging visual form by Raiko Iwata, a Japanese coffee lover living in Seattle, on her appropriately titled blog, I Love Coffee. Iwata based her post on research gathered by Stephen Miller, a PhD candidate at the Uniformed Services University of Health Sciences in Bethesda. Everybody is different, of course, but we are all guided by our 24-hour hormonal cycle, referred to as the circadian clock. And yeah, I gotta tell you, that clock, I need to get that clock reset as soon as the weather breaks, which I'm hoping that it has broken now. It seems to be pretty stable the last couple of weeks. And once school gets out, I think I'm gonna need to reset my clock. Like, instead of taking naps, how about go to bed before midnight? Which is hard to do. It is really hard to do for me. But go to bed at midnight, get up at sunrise. I used to do that. And I feel pretty good when I do that. I have energy. I want to go exercise. I want to get stuff done. Not thinking if I do the split shift day where I take a nap about 8 and then get up at midnight or 1 and start working again until 4 or 5 and then go to sleep until 8. All I want to do is get to my next nap. And that's not good, I don't think. And I think that really does mess up my circadian clock and my hormonal levels. Because I feel like crap when I do that. It says these basic rhythms are pre-programmed into us genetically, and although we can mess with our cycles through lifestyle habits, yes, the major factor in the regulation is sunlight. One of the things that this clock controls in humans is the release of a hormone called cortisol, which makes us feel alert and awake. Wonder if they have cortisol supplements. That'd probably be dangerous, wouldn't it? Like loading yourself up with hormones. Here's the thing. The peak production of cortisol occurs between 8 and 9 a.m. under normal circumstances. This means that at the time many people are having their first cup of coffee on their way to work, their bodies are actually naturally caffeinating most effectively. According to Iwata, the effects of caffeine consumption at times of peak cortisol levels actually diminishes the effectiveness of the additional stimulation. Oh, so they're saying we shouldn't be drinking coffee between 8 and 9 a.m., which actually that's good because our first cup starts at 9, doesn't it? Worse still, by consuming caffeine when it is not needed, your body will build a faster tolerance to it and the buzz you get will be greatly diminished. Well, that would suck now. Gotta love the great buzz. Cortisol is also considered a stress-related hormone. Yeah. You know what? If you walk around stressed all day long, your body produces cortisol, and after an extended period of time, that can cause a large system breakdown in your body. And, at least in my research, that was kind of, at the time, when I ended up with all those autoimmune diseases, that was what I kind of pegged it on, was the high amount of stress that I always had from my work environment. You know, I was running, back when I was engineering, I had like 30 or 40 salespeople constantly on top of me, calling me, and it was psycho. Everybody needed everything yesterday, and everybody was, let's put it this way, they had that salesperson personality, so no one gave two shits about you. It's all about me, 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 me. And, if you didn't jump through hoops the second they said something, they were going to their manager trying to get you into trouble. It was a really, really great money, but it was such a stressful job. And that was when, my boss Sharon and I used to joke about, oh my God, it was so crazy. My hair started falling out until my hair did start falling out in big round chunks. That was not funny at all. It ended up being, autoimmune alopecia. That it finally went away, but in all my research about those autoimmune diseases, that's what it kept coming back to, was like an overdose of cortisol, because your body is always in fight or flight mode, always, when you're stressed. And so all those stress hormones are constantly caressing their way through your bodily systems, and they do damage because it's only meant to be like for turbo cycle, right? All right. Cortisol is considered a stress-related hormone, and consumption of caffeine has been shown to increase the production of cortisol when timed at periods of peak cortisol levels. An increased tolerance for caffeine can therefore lead to heightened cortisol levels, which can disturb circadian rhythms and have other deleterious effects on your health. And some of those things, like I said before. Also, the increased tolerance for caffeine, anyone who's had a point in their life where they could consume a pot or more of coffee a day, like I used to be able to, would know that being buzzed all day like that is not a healthy thing. There's no way I can drink that much coffee now. It just totally rots my stomach. But now I can manage 2 cups. I do my first one now with you guys. And when the show, sometimes if it was a long night in the middle of the show, I'll put a clip on and go get it. But usually I wait till the end of the show till it's over and I go get cup 2, but that's it. Otherwise I can't sleep and it makes me not feel well. Iwata, as her blog title suggests, loves coffee and has articulated what she considers to be the optimal timing for your coffee intake to experience maximum enjoyment with minimal negative effects. The times of peak cortisol levels in most people are between 8 and 9 a.m., 12 to 1 p.m., and 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. So those are the times that you should not drink coffee. 8 to 9, 12 to 1, and 5:30 to 6:30. Therefore, timing your coffee breaks, an apt term, between 9:30 and 11:30 a.m., 1:30 and 5 p.m. takes advantage of the dips in your cortisol level when you need a boost the most. It's true. Tell you what, after lunchtime, 1:30 to 3:30, that used to be the hardest time for me when I was sitting in the office, especially after lunch. If I could have taken a nap, I would have. Put this way, the traditional idea of a coffee break makes a lot of sense. I almost wonder if the idea of having coffee first thing is a habit instilled by the coffee industry to get us to all drink more coffee. Maybe. What Iowa's chart does not take into account is coffee consumption by early risers before 8 a.m. when many of us have our first cups. This raises the question, if you got to start work at 8, you're going to be drinking your coffee at 7. This raises the question of whether to have 3 coffees per day, probably too much for most people, or to forego one of the periods Miller's research suggests. Iwata's delightful blog has other pleasures as well. There was a post up about an app that simulates the audio ambiance of a cafe for those who find it a productive work environment, a comparison of the beneficial attributes of beer versus coffee, and a spot-on assessment of what your coffee preferences reveal about your personality. Hey, I want to see, a comparison of beneficial attributes of beer versus coffee. Let's go there. 2 of my favorite beverages. Your brain on beer versus coffee. Oh my God. This is so freaking great. Hold on. I think we need to, this needs to actually replace, I might have to use this one tomorrow. I did an I Love Our Fish Farmer or something cup because Drew's going to be on. But this graphic, this is a huge infographic. And I think I need to use this for the show announcement tomorrow. It's got, here, I'll drop this in chat so you guys can share this with me. Alright. There you are. Hi guys. I usually don't sit on this page. There you go. That is the Coffee Lovers, infographic. I really like it. They have 2 brains. One on the left, one on the right. The one on the left is the beer with the yellow stuff and they're pouring it into the brain. The other one on the right is the brown stuff and they're pouring that into the brain. So, let's see. When alcohol hits your cerebral cortex, you feel less focused, but it frees up your brain from all the distractions that normally occupy it. Boy, isn't that the truth. When your blood alcohol reaches 0.07, which is about 2 drinks worth, you become more creative. Yeah, that's the nice word for it. Creative. I lose all my filters. So if that's what you want to call creative, just don't put me on air if I've been drinking, because it usually doesn't turn out well. So the good about it, beer makes you less worried about the world around you, which frees up your brain to make deeper connections and to come up with great ideas. And yes, you know what? It does work for me like that, especially when I'm brainstorming with a friend or two and we have a few beers. I usually do come up with some pretty good ideas. Here's the bad. A couple of beers makes you less focused and decreases your memory. Well, yes, after a whole evening of brainstorming and beer, I usually don't always remember what we brainstormed. The best time to drink it, beer is good if you're searching for an initial idea. Conclusion, beer is good for kickstarting your brain into coming up with great ideas. Oh, okay, well, I guess that was the end result of that. Coffee. What about coffee? When caffeine comes in, the receptor binds with caffeine instead of the this is one of those hormones, andazine. When andazine binds with its andazine receptor, you feel drowsy. So when caffeine comes in, the receptor instead binds with caffeine instead of adenosine. There you go. It's the sleepy chemical. Which means that 5 minutes later, you get more energy. The good. Caffeine's effects kick in only after 5 minutes, which gives you more energy and a stronger ability to focus. And yeah, caffeine, gotta tell you, coffee is really pretty incredibly amazing as to how fast it works, isn't it? Coffee is good if you already have an idea and you just need to focus on getting busy. That was always my problem in college. It's like, getting an English degree. Let me just tell you, anyone who's ever been thinking about that. It was great. I learned so much. It just was so mind-bending, expanding, and you could really, by studying literature, it takes you back into the history of everything. You know what I mean? So it's not just literature. We're not reading about little Miss Muffet sitting on her tuffet. We're reading about, medieval wars or whatever, medieval culture. I just did so much in the medieval realm and before, and stuff that, we don't deal with on a daily basis. They typically don't deal with in the history books at school. I don't ever remember really doing the Middle Ages in history. I don't remember maybe briefly talking about the Crusades, but we never really got into like medieval society or, the Romans or the Greeks. We never did really any of that. So that literature was great for learning about all that stuff. But here's the thing. You gotta write like a few hundred papers in the 4+ years that you're there. And you have to get to an intermediate - advanced level of a foreign language to be able to pass. So it's pretty difficult. And if you're a procrastinator like I can be at times, I had all these papers to do, and this was pre-computer days, by the way, so everything was done on a typewriter. Thank God, though. I had just bought my nifty, like my very last year of school, they had come out with those nifty Correcto typewriters where you could like push the button and go and it would go backwards into the correct, the little whiteout stuff automatically. But before that, you had that little whiteout bottle or the little round eraser that you used to have to erase on the typewriter. So that also made things difficult, not having it on a computer, and you made a big mistake, you had to type the whole thing over again. But, so I always had this problem, like it was time for my paper to be due, and I'd be like, oh my God, I can't concentrate, the house is such a mess. And so I'd spend 3 or 4 hours cleaning the house because I had to write the paper, and it would make me think better. Okay, so now I've cleaned the house, so now it's time to write the paper. Well, okay, I need to come up with the idea as to what I'm going to write the paper about. And that's where I would get stumped. And it was so painful. I would be up half the night writing every due date. But what I probably should have done, according to this coffee versus alcohol article, is had some alcohol first to come up with the idea, and then gotten up in the morning and had my first cup of coffee after 9 a.m. and then started writing the paper. So damn. I could have had a method. Alright. Anyway, we're not going to talk about that anymore. So, that coffee story just hijacked everything I was going to talk about, but that's okay. It's because it snuck into my news feed. I want to give you an update. We have some new shows starting. Judas Crowley. I don't know if you're here this morning, Judas. Good morning. If you are, yes, he is. Judas Crowley is going to be starting with us at the beginning of June, taking the Sunday night slot, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern. So he will be on after Truth or Talk, I believe, right? So, no, actually after Dr. George Simon. Truth or Talk is on 5 to 7. George is on 7 to 8. And Judas and Crowley will be on from 8 to 10. Sensi's on 10 to 11. And then Mr. Nathan Frazier with Live Free FM is on 11 to 1 a.m. So that's really Sundays, man. It'll be cranking from like 11 a.m. until 1 a.m. And Brandon Turberville has brought me 4 new shows. And there's a surprise in there too, but we got to get everything verified first. But 4 new shows, 2 of whom contacted me yesterday, so we're going to get those lined up as well before summer. One is quite a famous person, I think. We've talked about it before, but I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag this time. He said he's really interested and he wants to do a separate show for us, so maybe we'll get him on UCY. We already simulcast him coming from somewhere else, but he said he wants to do a show just for us, so Might be fun. And then, then there's a fourth person that I still need to get in touch with. So, guys, we may very well have 5 new shows to kick off summer with, on top of everything that we have going now. So that should be super awesome. And I am very much looking forward to it. Yes, Judas's new show is called Subliminal Sanity. So that'll be great. That's a great Sunday show, actually, and that's a great time slot. So I'm very excited that that time slot works for you as well. All right, so what do I even look at today? I have about an hour. Actually, I have about 40 minutes. I did not touch base with Drew since he was around yesterday in chat, so hoping he remembers. If not, we will just go on by ourselves because, you know, I don't do this often alone. But as long as I don't make your ears bleed, it's alright. Alright, let me get to a couple of my pages, and we're gonna hit up some news. There was some big shit that happened yesterday. Oh, you know what, too? Let me just make sure that we're not forwarded. There we go. It's actually pretty nice here today. We had some big thunderstorms last night. Here's something we're going to talk about. I was inspired by Gringo's vegetable garden pictures. If you haven't seen them and you're out there, Gringo, I was highly impressed. A beautiful, beautiful garden, and his stuff is growing like crazy. So after my show and getting all my crap done as fast as I could yesterday, I bit the bullet and I got my ass outside and dug into the greenhouse piled with mountains of dead plants and dead stuff in pots. I mean, everything was just kind of stuffed in there for the winter. So I did. I took on the entire project yesterday, ripped everything out of there, got all the pots cleaned out, all the dead plants ripped out and into compost. I kind of chopped up the compost, but we're going to get some compost questions answered from Drew. I'm afraid of my compost. It's all liquidy now. But I think that's the good stuff. I think that's that liquid gold they talk about. But wow, does it smell like a sewer plant. And what's great, though, they're in my greenhouse, because Drew was telling me, if you have your compost in your greenhouse, it actually, with the decomposition, it outputs heat. So in the wintertime, it might be just enough heat to keep your plants from freezing in the greenhouse, which I thought was a pretty neat idea. And it did. I mean, if you can believe it, lettuce is kind of like a succulent, right? I mean, lettuce has water in it, so it dries out. And that would be one thing that I would think would get frosted real easily, or at least be extremely sensitive to cold. And when I opened the door for the first time this spring, in one of my big containers, 4 lettuce plants had come back from last year and are already like pickable. And that's no water. That was living on the water that was in the dirt from last year. No TLC. I haven't even been in there until now. And I have 4 lettuces that are fully grown. Like, holy crap. So it must not have gotten too cold in there. 4 of my strawberry plants, I just had to cut all the dead stuff off. They already got flowers on them. There were probably 6 or 8 catnip plants that came up by themselves, so I've transplanted those. And I managed to get some more of my lettuce planted, so I planted out the rest of that container and all my herbs yesterday. So today, after the show, for anyone who was around when I was in chatting yesterday, I need to go get some cow poop today. And I'll be ready to rock and roll. I got some massive pots, too. These things, I don't even know where they came from. Maybe from a tree or two, but like those pots for the big trees. I mean, these things are up to maybe the top of your thigh. I have one of them, and this thing must be 2.5 or 3 feet wide. So I'm going to try and plant like a whole ton of carrots maybe, or I have carrots and radishes and turnips I might try in one of those. I also have artichokes, Brussels sprouts, and what's that other one called? It's pointy. Damn, I can't remember it. It looks like a pepper, but it's not, and it's really good. Sometimes I throw it into stew. I'll have to look. I don't remember what it's called, but anyway, so I'm really psyched, and everything's all clean. I got rid of all the dead roots out of the soil. I mixed it. I intermingled some of the soils. You know what I mean? Because they get dead. So now I got some fresh peat moss, and I'm going to get some fresh manure, and I got to go out into the woods. We put grass clippings and leaves when we rake out the garden all back in the woods out back. So there's got to be a really nice pile of rotted leaves under there somewhere that I'm going to go dig up. And I'm going to rock and roll. So thank you very much, Gringo, for being my inspiration. But that's also what made me think about really after listening to Kevin and Libby on Tuesday and Thursdays, you know, we tend to forget about the radiation, and that is the original reason why we built this greenhouse, was to keep all of that rainwater and the particulate in the air off of our food, as well as geoengineering and whatever else. So that was Drew's whole premise in starting his aquaponics farm. He's actually doing really well now. It's become a commercial enterprise. He's got businesses all buying from him, restaurants and stuff. So we're going to talk about that. He actually has some great ways to get radiation out of your soil with like calcium magnesium, CalMag they call it, and some other ideas. So that will be for hour 2. So anyway, I will keep you guys updated. I'll get some pictures of the greenhouse once I get stuff planted, and we'll go from there. It should be fun. All right, so now that I've rambled for 28 minutes, it is almost time to start ingesting coffee. 9:30 is coming up on the East Coast. Okay. So we're going to hit my behind the curtain page and see what was going on, because now I'm kind of brain dead. Oh, so here, let me ask you guys about this. This is one of the most whack-jobby things I have heard in a long time. But, wow, talk about an agenda. You know, I've been saying for the longest time the Chinese are coming for our women. You know, one-child policy. You have a whole generation of boys as you gave all your daughters away for adoption or carried them up to a mountain to die. Well, they are proposing a new high-speed train direct from China to the United States, underground, Beijing to Alaska, going through Siberia. Now, does that seem like such a good idea? I don't think so, honestly. Hold on, this is what we're gonna do. I got a couple clips here. I want to hear this because I was like, whose cockamamie idea is that? And I'm sure Putin, and who even is running China? I don't even know what their is he a president? Is he a king? I gotta remember my name. Jay. There we go. Supreme ruler. And you know they hate us. They got us over a barrel economically. And once the invasion begins, a high-speed, direct underground bullet train from freaking Beijing to Alaska, that sounds like the dumbest freaking idea I've ever heard. Dumb. Why would we do that? Why would we allow them to pour in here at breakneck speed to start buying up more land? Dumb idea. Look at what the Chinese did to Africa. Go look at the East Coast. And then tell me that this is a good idea. Alright, I got a clip here from, it looks like Erin Burnett in the thumbnail, probably. Let's see what she's got to say about it. Maybe.
The verdict, please. Yeah. Is it possible?
Oh, the Chinese trains are very impressive, yes. But let's look at the building site first, because this is way, way up there, right on the edge of the Arctic Circle. The Bering Strait is what separates North America from Asia, and as Sarah Palin might note, you really can see Russia from here. If you get high enough, at the narrowest point, it's about 53 miles wide. How deep is this water? Not that bad, about 98 to 164 feet deep, depending on where you've paddled your kayak. So who would have to be involved in this project? Well, politically and economically, you would probably need Russia and China and Canada and the United States here in the form of Alaska. The channel is what they would pattern this after in all likelihood. So let's look at the construction of this thing, because that was built under the English Channel to connect the UK to France. Even at the narrowest point, what we're talking about could be twice as long as the channel, but the water is shallower here, so essentially what they'd have to do is start boring through, and this is what they would probably aim for. Something like this, 3 tunnels, one with trains going one direction, one with trains going another direction, and in the middle what they've typically built is a sort of access tunnel for emergencies and for service and all sorts of ways to get back and forth. It's a big, big, big project, and they have to push into the water and the rock here and the undersea, and they have to put in shielding as they go, just a step at a time, claiming this area with a big metal tube, in a sense, to build all of this. It's a big, big, big job, Aaron. There's no question.
I mean, it's incredible. It sounds like, from at least an engineering standpoint, which is what might have, given a lot of people pause, it's possible. Okay, but then here's the question, Tom. I mean, how much would it cost, and how long would it take?
Yeah, well, it's possible, although I'd like to point out, you know where you are on each end of this tunnel? You're in the middle of nowhere, so they've got a lot to build about that. But if you look at just the cost of this thing, if you based it roughly on the channel, maybe $35 billion if everything goes well.
That's
maybe
not
you could
good
build
for China,
it there.
Tom.
That's not unbelievable. It's not crushing. But you might also be talking about 20 years to complete, maybe. But boy, big, big, big guess here, Aaron. You know why? Because the idea for the channel came up a pretty good while before anyone actually started digging. As in, it was first seriously proposed by Napoleon back in 1800. And they finally completed it in 1994.
I give Napoleon, I don't think I've given him enough credit.
Yeah. So our great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren might be able to report on the ribbon cutting up in Alaska, Aaron.
A little man with great ideas, Napoleon. And by the way, people have been over the Bering Strait,
Yeah.
I mean, we can do it again.
So $35 billion with a B dollars and at least 20 years to complete. I mean, the thing is that with technology today, back in like 90, what year did he say the tunnel was, Doug? 94? Technology wasn't like it is now. And that was just under the English Channel. The Bering Strait does not look like it's that huge. I mean, it's, I think he said 90 feet down or something. And it didn't look like it was that far. I would be very frightened of that. I mean, honestly, much safer for Russians and Chinese to get on a plane, a few hundred at a time, take them 8-10 hours to get here. I don't like the idea of a high-speed bullet train shooting over here to come buy stuff up. Not a good idea. Plus, if you saw yesterday, they were going on and on about now how the Arctic is out of control melting, in Antarctica, that, over the next 20 years or so, we're going to have all these flooding problems. So hey, maybe they're thinking up in Alaska that's going to be some beautiful waterfront, beachfront property by that time with all of their alarmist global warming. So the Chinese are going to move in to Alaska. I don't know. I just thought, what a bad idea. We get enough Chinese junk. We don't need a high-speed train now bringing them all over here. That just, how dumb is that? Especially for protection of the mainland. I think we should be more isolationist, honestly. And I'm not being stupid about it. I just think that globalization, though it has had a good impact in some respects, it's actually had a very bad impact if you take a look at what it's done to our economy and manufacturing. And I mean, look at now there's a huge pot of competition. So you get out of college and you're competing with every kid your age plus globally. You're a programmer, man. You don't have just, the 10,000 programmers that graduated plus the other, 80,000 programmers that are working here in the U.S. You got all the Indian programmers and the Pakistani programmers and the Chinese programmers and the Russian hackers. And everybody's for sale. Things today, you don't need to be in a specific location to produce work and do a job. So, double-edged sword. I just don't think giving the Chinese a high-speed, quick way to get here to buy things up is a good idea. My personal opinion. Here is something that I caught right at the very end of the night as the thunderstorms are rolling in. Oh, so anyway, I worked in the greenhouse, and if anyone remembers, I was like, I think I have bugs all over me. I did. I had that itchy, you know, like where you keep feeling those little things on your arms and stuff. I was like, man, I gotta go get hosed off. So I finally did. There was finally enough hot water after Munchkin got out, and I hosed off. But once I hose off at night, it's like, it just gets rid of all the stress of the day. So I got into some shorts and a t-shirt, and I was listening to, the After Dark Roundtable, and a big thunderstorm rolled in. So it was thundering and lightning, and the rain was coming down so hard it sounded like someone was pouring rocks on the skylights. So I left, After Dark playing on my computer on the speakers, and I went and laid down on the couch. So I figured I'd enjoy the thunder, the lightning, and After Dark. And the next thing I knew, I woke up and it was 8 o'clock this morning. So, didn't turn out too well as I was expected, but I did manage to grab a few fresh stories just before I crashed out. And this one caught me as pretty damn interesting. Joe Biden's son was just hired by the largest gas provider in the Ukraine. Huh. Go figure. I'm going to read this. This is out of the Countercurrent News. Can you say, quote unquote, conflict of interest? Oh, that's what it likely seems to be to the critics of the move by Burisma Holdings, Ukraine's largest private gas producer, to hire Robert Biden. Robert Hunter Biden is the son of, yes, that Biden, the vice president of the United States. He has just been added on to the Ukrainian gas provider as a new director by the board of directors. According to Burisma Holdings, the son of the vice president of the United States will oversee the company's legal unit and will provide support for the company among international organizations. So what is he, like the State Department for the oil company? In their press release on the new hire, the company lauds Biden's credentials, saying the following: Robert Hunter Biden will be in charge of the holdings legal unit and will provide support for the company among international organizations. On his new appointment, he commented, Bursima's track record of innovation and industry leadership in the field of natural gas means that it can become a strong driver of a strong economy in Ukraine. As a new member of the board, I believe that my assistance in consulting the company on matters of transparency, corporate governance and responsibility, international expansion, and other priorities will contribute to the economy and benefit the people of Ukraine. The chairman of the board of directors of Burisma Holdings, Mr. Alan Apter, noted, quote, the company's strategy is aimed at the strongest concentration of professional staff and the introduction of the best corporate practices, and we are delighted that Mr. Biden is going to help us achieve these goals. Wow. Mr. Hunter Biden is a counsel to Boies, Schiller, and Flexner, LLP, a national law firm based in New York, USA, which served in cases including Bush versus Gore and the U.S. versus Microsoft. Oh yeah, that was the, not class action, what's it called? Antitrust. That was the antitrust lawsuit that when Bill Gates finally bent over and smiled, that was when he handed the government the keys to the back door, if you guys remember that. We've talked about that a lot of times. I was there every day, every minute through that whole thing, watching it under a microscope. And I remember that very minute that Bill Gates finally decided to cross over full-time evil. that smile on his face when that antitrust lawsuit was miraculously over and Microsoft didn't have to get split up, and Billy smiled for the camera. Biden is also one of the co-founders and managing partners of the investment advisory company Rosemont Seneca Partners, as well as a chairman of the board of Rosemont Seneca Advisors. He is also an adjunct professor at Georgetown University's master's program in the School of Foreign Service. Mr. Biden has experience in public service and foreign policy. He is a director for the U.S. Global Leadership Coalition, the Center for National Policy, and the chairman advisory board for the National Democratic Institute. Having also served as senior vice president for MBNA Bank, isn't that like Mellon Bank? Former U.S. President Bill Clinton appointed him an executive director of e-commerce policy coordination under Secretary of Commerce William Daley. Yes, that was right after Billy Gates bent over and gave the keys up. Mr. Biden has served as honorary co-chair of the 2008 Obama-Biden Inaugural Committee as well. He is a member of the Bar of the State of Connecticut and the District of Columbia, the U.S. Supreme Court, and the Court of Federal Claims, and he received his bachelor's degree from Georgetown University and a J.D. Juris Doctor from Yale Law School. Biden is an also well-known public figure. He's chairman of the board for the World Food Program, together with the world's largest humanitarian organization, the United Nations World Food Program. In this capacity, he offers assistance to poor developing countries, fighting hunger and poverty, and helping provide food and education to 300 million malnourished children around the world. So guys, he sounds like a shoo-in, like the perfect type of guy that they would want involved to help the Ukraine recover, huh? Yeah, that was a perfect choice. I don't know. I mean, I don't really know any dirt on the guy, but if you look at some of his affiliations there, you can definitely see how he could be just another great puppet to put where they gotta put, and they know that he's gonna do what they tell him to do. And that's all there is. Makes it all happy. All right. A few other things I want to talk about here. I did see Drew come online, so that means that we are going to have our guest for the second hour. We'll have a laugh, and then I'm going to start cutting into some issues about water on the West Coast, which I'm sure we are all aware of. But there was a great story by Shit at the Fan Plan yesterday, something I thought long and hard about when trying to figure out where the best place in the country would be to be for Shit Hit the Fan. And though I love Colorado, I have come to that conclusion that water aquifer through there, down the Colorado River, into the, what's it called? The big dam down in Nevada. I was there with Heidi. It's really super low. Somebody? Cupid doll! The hell's that called? What's that big dam? Hoover Dam! The Hoover Dam is super, super low. They're having historic droughts in western Texas. New Mexico is desert. Nevada is desert. I just don't think that long term that west is a good idea, honestly. And what this article points out is that if you've ever tried to live without water for more than 24 hours, it's not a good thing. And if it's shit hit the fan and it's dog eat dog, there might be a little bit of water, but everybody else is going to be fighting for that same water. And I really come to the conclusion that at least where I am, even though some of my friends call it North Korea up here, we do have the Great Lakes and the Finger Lakes up here, as well as the St. Lawrence. You got the Hudson. I mean, you got all that water that way, and then the ocean, and lots of woods, right? And we have lots of underground springs up here. So I don't know. though I hate the snow, I still think that at least on the East Coast and especially the Northeast, there are water reserves. And water is blue gold, remember, people. And as they keep manipulating the environment and the climate and creating these geoengineered storms, or like Dane's talked about quite a number of times, he's pretty convinced that they're putting this desiccant into the upper atmosphere that's soaking up the moisture. You know, they've had so many repeated weather events where predicted rain, it looks like it's gonna rain, it comes over like it's gonna rain, and nothing ever falls to the ground. You know, after a while, California's in massive drought. I mean, if you guys remember, they weren't even able to plant a whole bunch of crops this season because there's no water. Though we do have that NSA data center sucking up millions of gallons a day in Utah. But hey, Utah doesn't need to send water to California so we can have food. So anyway, we'll talk about that in a second if I don't run out of time, but I did want to play this one. You know, we've looked at some ridiculous stories over the last few weeks of people getting arrested or attacked by cops for really stupid freaking things. And one was that woman that was jaywalking on campus. I think we looked at that a few weeks ago. She got tackled. There was another one that was jogging. She was jogging with traffic. But when you're on the road, you're supposed to be, as an individual, not on a vehicle, walking against traffic. So she ran into some legal issues. Well, now Alec Baldwin, did you guys see this? And at first I was thinking, well, maybe this is a ploy for a new TV show, because I think 30 Rock is off the air. But I don't know, because this has been happening in other cities. Alec Baldwin got arrested yesterday in New York City for riding his bicycle against traffic instead of with traffic, because bicycles you ride with traffic, walking you walk against traffic. He got arrested riding his bicycle the wrong direction against traffic on Fifth Avenue. Really? New York City police don't have anything better to do than to arrest a famous person, no less, riding his bicycle against traffic? I was just flabbergasted at that. So here, I got a clip. Maybe if it loads.
Speaking of celebrities, we're just learning that actor Alec Baldwin has been arrested apparently in New York. The 56-year-old actor was accused of riding his bicycle in the wrong direction.
Yeah, apparently he was also given a summons for disorderly conduct. In Touch Weekly obtained photos showing the 30 Rock actor being handcuffed. An eyewitness tells the magazine that Baldwin was calm while he was being cuffed. We're told that police are in the process of releasing him now.
I think we'll just leave that where it is.
Hey, what is that? And so there's no outrage? Why wouldn't there be outrage? I mean, I wonder if he had a bike helmet on, because I didn't see him with a bike helmet on in the video. I believe in New York State it is also required to be wearing a bike helmet. Honestly. I mean, stuff like that gets my blood pressure up, because it's just so friggin' stupid that we would be paying to arrest people riding their freaking bicycles the wrong direction. That to me is a waste of a peace, quote unquote, peace officer. They should be paying TSA to do that. Or I don't know, let's recruit the Girl Scouts. Get them started early. Just really, really stupid. This is one thing. I work really hard. And one thing that I hate more than anything on the planet is wasting my time. You know, if I ask you about something and I need an answer, give me an answer, because I only want to do it once. Don't tell me that something is good. Have me go through all the work. I give you the final, and then you look at it and start going, well, I really meant to tell you I wanted this, and I wanted that, and I wanted this. I'll blow my lid. Waste of time. There isn't enough time in life to be doing things 3 and 4 times in a row. Don't waste time. And so, to me, I don't know. You know what? Why don't you guys work on recovering bodies in the garbage dump somewhere? You know? I don't know. Start cracking down on gang activity in New York. I just don't understand what would make them think that it would be a good use of their time to arrest somebody on a bicycle. and then book them and let them go. That's just stupid. Absolutely stupid. But hey, they can't stop and frisk. Maybe that's their goal. You know, in Pennsylvania now, if you guys remember, there was a clip, probably a week or two ago. They no longer have to have a warrant to search a car. You just need to look suspicious now. And suspicion is open to interpretation. So, he looks suspicious. Look, he's got green hair. Maybe we should pull him over and search his car. I just don't see how any of that benefits us, and it doesn't. And so in New York, hey, let's stop someone for any little single infraction and turn it into a national case. So we could probably now go in, would you think, and search Baldwin's pockets, get some more info. You know, I keep getting this call almost every day into the call-in line, and it's from the same 718-717 as the network's phone number. Let's answer. Oh, they're gone. Because I listened to the voicemail yesterday, and it's some Spanish recording. So it must be for the Brooklyn neighborhood that the exchange is in. They must be doing like auto dialers. So my Skype number keeps getting the auto dialer. I'm running out of time quickly. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to that shit hit the fan plan story. I heard about MERS. I saw Prepper Chick say that now there were 2 doctors that they think have it. There was a clip yesterday that they were testing 20 healthcare workers at the 2 Orlando hospitals who came in contact with that Saudi who apparently was diagnosed with MERS, the second case in the United States. I'm still going to say that I think the Ebola story is a way bigger story than this MERS story. MERS mortality rate is only 30%. Ebola is 90, and we went through 70 to 90, but we went through a bunch of stories yesterday that, I mean, here's my thing. Ebola was on the headlines, and it was on the headlines as broken through containment. This is the worst outbreak we've ever seen. These doctors are not prepared. Oh no, the test we had isn't recognizing this new strain. And there was all this panic. And then a day or two later, they came out and they had said, well, we don't want to panic anybody. That was actually right after they said that those 40 people, migrants, had shown up in Italy who had had the strain that was not detectable with the old test. And then right after that, they came out and they said, you know what, don't worry about it because we've got it all contained now. And I was calling bullshit on that because how can they go from absolute broken through containment panic is the worst we've ever seen, and then a few days later come out and say, hey, we got it contained. And right before that, we had read the story yesterday, the one that I had remembered, where they said, oh, we're not reporting numbers anymore. And they stopped. So anyway, last night I started doing a few more searches just to see, because I noticed they really are playing funky games with search results. And even Lady Pitbull noticed that yesterday. She's like, whoa, all the stuff that's showing up in my search engine is old. Yeah. They've like re-skewed things. So when you search news, it's all going to be old news, or it's going to be targeted news that they want you to see. You got to actually use some of the search tools and dig down a little bit more if you want to actually get some stuff. So I did a search. So I saw that there must have been a press release about, was it 7 days ago, that every news agency, it looked like, all printed the same exact story. Propaganda, that's a telltale sign, exact words in every publication that they got it under control. But if you go back, so I searched Ebola panic, and I just searched it for the last week, I am still seeing stories here from 7 days ago, Guinea facing quote unquote unprecedented epidemic as Ebola virus spreads. Ebola kills nearly 60 in Guinea. This is 4 days ago. Ebola information battles and fear. This is from Relief Web. Infectious diseases another whole story about it. Frontline reflections on Guinea's battle against Ebola. I mean, there are definitely some stories out here. Here's the News Hour. Panicked mobs attack treatment center from 4 days ago. So, I don't know, guys. I'm just wondering if they aren't trying to keep this quiet. And there was a big meeting that was held yesterday. They were all being called, I don't remember which group it was, like the World Health Organization. I think it was WHO. Hold on, let's see. There was a clip on it. I'm pretty sure it was WHO. That they called a big meeting, international meeting, to talk about MERS. Now, again, I'm gonna call bullshit on that. You're not gonna pull together a big international organization to talk about MERS. Alright? Not with Ebola raging on a continent. I'm gonna call bullshit. Here it is. Should you be worried about MERS? No. We listened to that one yesterday. Hold on. I have too many pages that I maintain to remember. Usually I do remember where I put it, but I don't quite. Alright, here. We'll play this one. This came out this morning from the CDC now. They're like, hey, after they started, they're making now MERS the headline, but they're downplaying it. Well, you can't really get MERS unless you have really super close contact, and you can't even get MERS having sex with someone who's been exposed, right? We read that yesterday. So Wendy and I are like, well then how the hell do you get it, right? So now, but they've made it a headline. MERS. It's everywhere. Oh, second case, get afraid, but it's only 30%, but we're not gonna mention the Ebola at all. After it was headline, now it just disappeared. Well, now the CDC comes out and they say, we don't want underreaction, because now it's not having the effect. They downplayed it too much, I think, and it is not having the effect that they wanted. There is no cure, though, so what are you going to do? Here we go. Maybe.
I want to bring in Dr. Ann Schuchat. She's the director for the CDC's National Center for Immunization and Respiratory Diseases. Dr. Schuchat, good to see you again. The CDC has stressed that MERS is a low risk for Americans, but you are concerned enough to post warnings in airports. Explain.
Whenever we see a new virus like this that is capable of causing severe illness and death, we take it seriously. And we've been preparing here at the CDC for the past 2 years since this virus emerged to be ready if the virus was imported. That preparation paid off when we did see the first importation to Indiana and now the second to Florida. We do take it seriously. We know some things about this new virus. We know that it is not easily spread person to person. The spread that has been seen so far has generally been with extremely close contacts in the household or in the healthcare environment. And that's why we've been focusing on contact tracing among healthcare workers and the households. It's really out of an abundance of caution that we've been contacting people who were on the same flights as the two patients who traveled in with the virus. We don't know yet that this virus can be spread in that kind of context, but early on in an investigation like this, we like to gather as much information as we can quickly so that we can improve our recommendations going forward. So right now we've been working to contact everybody who was on flights with the patient who traveled into Florida. That contact work is ongoing right now, and I would imagine over the days ahead we'll learn more whether there was any transmission at all. Based on everything that I know so far, I'm not expecting it, but I think it is likely that there will be more importations, and because of that, we're really working closely with the state and local health departments.
Dr. Schuchat, just to play devil's advocate for a second, there have been 2 confirmed cases in the U.S. One of those people is apparently cured. The other person is being treated. More people will die today in car accidents, from guns, from slipping in a bathtub, from obesity. Explain to me why these drastic measures, drastic is probably overstating the case, why these measures of putting up warnings in airports, when really the risk of fatality, as you explain, it's very difficult to get MERS, is so low.
We think it's really critical to avoid overreacting in the community, but also avoid underreacting in the healthcare environment. The reason for the signage is so that we can promptly identify potential cases so that they can be separated from other people. What we saw in the SARS virus, which was somewhat like this, or what we've seen so far in certain episodes of the MERS coronavirus in the Arabian Peninsula, is outbreaks in the hospital environment. Those outbreaks can get larger and larger if you don't know who is infected and who isn't. So we think it's important to make sure that people traveling are aware of this new virus and are aware to tell their doctors about their travel history so that they can promptly be diagnosed.
So
the
it's
sooner
really,
we know about a problem, the sooner we can control the exposures.
Really an educational program to a degree. Dr.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
All right. So I don't know what to say about that. It almost seems to me like this MERS thing is being utilized as a distraction to keep your eye on this ball as the Ebola ball is percolating, like I said. We have Mr. Drew Lamb on with us. What do you think, Drew? Good morning, by the way.
Well, I think a lot. I just finished my first cup, so
good. So your brain is in primo condition.
Yeah, as are my bowels.
Yeah, yeah, they didn't mention that. They only talked about the brain in that infographic. So I don't know. What do you think about this? I honestly, I'm telling you, in some of these searches that I did, I find it hard to believe that we had this global panic and it's broken through containment just 2 weeks ago and all of a sudden we have it under control. I think it's bullshit.
Yeah, it's not under control. And, you know, the upcoming Bilderberg conference is well, at least part of it is going to be about antimicrobial resistance. And WHO just released an extensive report talking about this problem of antimicrobial resistance and how the medical industrial complex is now operating outside of the age of antibiotics with no solution. So I think it's interesting that this is all going on, you know, at about the same time. And so what's the solution going to be? You know, I suspect that they'll roll out, you know, microchips and little nanobots and things like that, and tell you that you need these things in order to survive these very dangerous diseases. And you know, they want to get everybody chipped, of course. And also, you know, it's part of the globalist agenda, the Illuminati agenda, to wipe out half the population of the planet. So this all fits into that perfectly. You know, kill off most of the people, microchip the rest. Well, they're just cattle, so you got to be branded, and they got to be able to track you and have all your vital information stored in the web of your hand or whatever. So I think they will create a huge scare to get people to succumb to this, and of course it'll all be tied into Obamacare and your bank account and all that junk.
And notice how they're really ramping this up quite a bit, you know, with all of the animal diseases, and we had the pig that I talked about this the other day, that diarrhea virus now that's killing all the piglets, and you know, we've had another chicken culling over in China, I saw, you know, as China's getting ready to process US chicken.
Great. Yeah, I really feel for the pig farmers. You know, that has to be a bad day at work, you know, when you come in and you've got your piglets that's, you know, your upcoming income, and it's, you know, and instead of feeding and nurturing them, you're shoveling out, you know, 30,000 piglets from your barns.
It's horrible.
Yeah, it's disastrous. You know, I've had minor disasters on my farm, but nothing like that. And not related to diseases like that.
No, and that's actually spreading in the soil. I talked about that yesterday. So they're now really looking at how to, you know, start putting their own, because I guess there really isn't anything from the government that has requirements for this virus on how to keep your pigs safe. So they've really had to kind of crack down and do their own biosecurity, where you got to make sure your boots are clean, and when you're going from farm to farm, that the dirt's all off your tires, because it's spreading in the soil.
Yeah, it only takes a very small amount of hog manure to spread that disease. So containment can be very difficult.
Yeah.
Just given the way that pigs root around, of course, they're going to get it, and so it's a really bad situation for these guys. I don't know how you'd stop it and keep it from spreading, without completely isolating your pigs and perhaps
slaughtering. I mean, that's just horrible.
Yeah.
We've seen that happen a few times in China with swine flu. Also,
I hate watching those videos.
Oh, I can't. It's awful.
These big holes and
don't. I mentioned that once, and I watched one, and that still haunts my nightmares.
Yeah,
horrific.
I hate it. I can't stand it, and it makes me think twice about eating pork. And I'm, I eat meat. I don't eat chicken usually. I have some kind of weird allergy to chicken, not all of the time, so I usually don't eat chicken. But I eat every other meat, as long as I know what it is.
Yeah. Squirrel.
Yeah, sure.
Hey, I wanted to ask you too. So you got this aquaponics farm going. Now, one of the other things that we've seen as far as future prices for food, we have blights going on the bananas, right? What else did we just hear about that was getting a blight? There's something else. But also, there was a mass culling of cows back at the end of last season because of drought, right? They couldn't make enough feed to feed them, and they didn't have enough water to water them, so instead they started culling them in the fall. So there was a big glut of beef on the market back then, and now prices are starting to go way up. We have pollution from many different things, whether it be viruses or Fukushima fallout falling all over us, getting into our food chain. I saw a story 2 days ago too. You being an aquaponics farmer, so you have your fish. Did you see that the genetically modified salmon, I think, is a go?
Excuse me, I did not see that article, but it doesn't surprise me. Wasn't that a Canadian firm that was working on that?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Like GMOs, supersized salmon.
But what I remember happening right before that discussion of GMO salmon is that the salmon all started to get some mysterious disease. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Right before that.
Well, it makes you wonder too. I mean, does it even matter anymore? With Fukushima fallout coming down, and we're seeing tumors in the salmon and steelhead in the Northwest. And
yeah, I saw those pictures.
Yeah, there's problems already. And so, we're seeing a collapse of the fisheries in the Pacific Ocean, especially the sardines. And so things are just getting wiped out now. And so it makes you wonder if it even really matters, if their GMO salmon escape, which they will, they're gonna get out. And I find it troubling that I've had to jump through so many hoops to raise my fish. The Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife inspected my facility 3 times before they gave me the thumbs up to raise fish. And I wasn't raising anything exotic, definitely not genetically modified. And I mean, just panfish, sunfish, warm water fish species that are in every body of water in the Rogue Basin where I'm located. But they wanted to make sure that my water, eggs, fry, fish, could not get into the sewer or into any of the streams. And it makes you wonder why they're worried about it getting into the sewer,
Well, I was like, when you first told me that, I'm like, so fish have wings? How are they going to spontaneously get out of containment?
Well, a bird could come in and grab a fish and
Oh, okay.
fly out of my shop and drop it in the creek.
I guess.
And then that bass is gonna lay a bunch of eggs and then they're magically gonna get fertilized. So I really wasn't doing anything that dangerous, but it took me about 6 months, to build systems that would comply with their demands, and so here we've got all this other stuff going on, and I doubt that the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife is going to weigh in on the GMO salmon issue.
No,
but
probably not.
the way that they typically farm these things, they're usually the farms. Major fish farms are usually located either in the sea in big pens, or they're located near a major river or stream, and then they route part of that to flush out the fish runs. And so there's a lot of pollution issues associated with that, because you're talking about a lot of water that could be low in oxygen, high in ammonia and nitrites, that gets flushed into a stream and can cause problems for the other fish and wildlife. And so, theoretically, that's how something like that could escape. A Franken salmon might be able to escape because the way that those systems are tied in, which is really weird, because my systems aren't tied into anything, and I can't tie them into anything.
Shouldn't they be self-contained? That would be my thought.
Yeah, they ought to be self-contained. They really should be to keep them from escaping into the wild some way, somehow. These biologists get really creative too about all the ways that things can escape and get into the wild. This biologist I met with was talking about how some tilapia escaped in Idaho and survived the winter and started breeding, and so now they have an invasive tilapia problem in a stream in Idaho. I don't recall which stream it was, but that's why they're so careful about it around here. And so another thing too is I wonder if people are going to want to eat these fish. I would imagine that they did some sort of market research and people thought it tasted great.
Well, here's the thing though. People are so ignorant about what they're eating. I mean, after the head of the Tuna Association, do you remember that last year, came out and actually said that the tuna was all radioactive? People are still eating freaking tuna.
Well, it doesn't matter anymore. That's why, like, we've had this coming out with the Illuminati, for example, that I was talking about with Fritz Springmeier last week. It doesn't matter anymore. You can just say whatever and people go, oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, the Illuminati's responsible for killing the banksters. Okay, that's cool. Oh, you want to kill half the population, whatever. You just tell people what's up, and most of them don't care. Just whatever, or they just dismiss it and move along. And, even around here where we are, we have a lot of small farms in the area, and
now, just for people who don't know, why don't you say where you are, who you are?
Well, we're in Southern Oregon, and we're in an area that a lot of people call the state of Jefferson, and people like me refer to it as the Republic of Jefferson, and it's a region of Southern Oregon and Northern California. And so we have a lot of shared interests between the two states, the southern portion of Oregon and the northern part of California. And I have a small aquaponics farm called Pyramid Pure Foods. And so there's a ballot measure that people in Jackson County, Oregon get to vote on this month, and it's about whether or not farms can grow genetically modified crops. And there's an organization, well, there's a big company, it's a huge, big agricultural firm called Syngenta that leases a bunch of fields in the area where they grow GMO sugar beets. And
now Syngenta is also responsible for the insecticide or the pesticide that causes desexing of frogs, by the way.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah. There's a few research papers on that.
Yeah, so I'm aware of one situation where the pollen from the sugar beets blew over to a nearby organic farm that was raising Swiss chard, and they cross-pollinated, contaminated this guy's organic crop. And it's my understanding that he worked out a deal with Syngenta, and they settled it all out. So people are voting on this, and it's interesting because it has a lot of support. I think that most people in the county are supporting the ban, and it would mean that you cannot grow genetically modified crops within Jackson County, and the way that it would work is if, well, say a neighboring farm thinks that you're growing genetically modified crops, they could report you to the county, and then the county could come in and inspect your farm and confiscate your crops, and because of these, and actually the other farm doesn't even have to prove that you contaminated their crops. It's just that the possibility that you could, even though I'm only aware of this happening one time in the area. So I don't like this because I look at it as an infringement upon property rights. I'm anti-GMO. However, I prefer free market solutions and not government solutions. I mean, we all know that government usually makes things worse, and is very wasteful. And and if you give the government an inch, they'll take a mile. So you give them more authority to step foot onto people's private property and confiscate private property and so on and so forth. I think you're just going to have abuses of that authority. So I've been pushing against it, which is weird given that I'm a farmer that grows heirloom crops, and I raise some of my crops for seed. But it's just, I think that this is the wrong approach. But the weird thing about this is that the support crosses over the parties. We're seeing, from liberals and conservatives, are both supporting this. It's really interesting how we have that crossover. But I find it troubling because some of my so-called anarchist and libertarian friends are supporting this, and which means that they really aren't very libertarian if they're supporting it. They think that government is a solution to this problem.
You're talking GMO labeling?
No, talking about growing GMO crops. And that's what I wanted to, that was another thing I wanted to get to is that what we're seeing this issue and everybody's talking about it, and most people are against the GMO crops, but Walmart keeps building big super Walmarts, around the valley here. And they just built a new one just a couple miles away from me, and it's very busy. So I don't understand how people in this community can be, against GMOs on one hand, but they love shopping at the super Walmart on the other.
Right. What do you think you're getting at Super Walmart? I've told my friends and family, don't buy food at Walmart.
Right.
I mean, half that food, you don't know where it comes from, and Walmart does huge business with China. I would not eat Chinese Walmart food. Thank you.
And we have wonderful farmers markets here. There's about three farmers markets a week between Medford and Ashland, Southern Oregon. And they're great. And there's wonderful vendors there and farmers. You get all kinds of things, and it's all fresh. Almost all of it is organic. And it's it's great, huge selection. You could find stuff that you won't find in the grocery store, and you're supporting, you know, your local farming industry, and this is the way to go. But it just disturbs me that you see, you know, Walmart growing and really being supported, and at the same time the community is saying we don't want GMOs. It's like, well, why do you care? You're shopping at Walmart. I don't get it. And
one thing I do want to bring up, I just want to mention to everybody, the Global March Against Monsanto is again this year. May. This is May 24th of this year. The website is march-against-monsanto.com. They should have all of their locations all over the world with dates and times and contact information if you want to get a hold of somebody. I think last year they had 300 or 400 different locations around the world, and they didn't even have time to get them all up, so they were happening everywhere. But everybody, let's try to be a part of that at least. It made it to mainstream last year, and if nothing else, it at least raises awareness of people who never knew what GMOs were. I mean, last year my parents signed petitions, and they were talking about, I see my mom now on Facebook, she shares out, Lee Camp had something the other day. She shared his thing. I was like, wow, my mother's sharing anti-GMO propaganda. But, I mean, I don't know. For the way I look at it, you know, if for nothing else for Walmart, at least support your local businesses. I mean, if you're supporting multi-billion-dollar global corporations to come in and squash the little guy, then you are a part of this globalization problem that I was talking about in regards to the high-speed bullet train from China to the United States. You know what I mean? Or, I mean, let's talk about the Trans-Pacific Partnership. That, or the, what was the one in, I can't remember it right off the top of my head. Clinton. The one that brought Mexico into the fold.
Oh, yeah, NAFTA.
NAFTA, yes, thank you. That sucked all of our manufacturing out of the country. I mean, that's what's going to happen, people. And this next gen of globalization is going to put the last nail in the coffin into our country's economy. I am pretty certain of that. You know, Indonesia pays their people, what, $3 a week? How are you going to compete against that?
Well, yeah, it's... You gotta look at the world in two different ways. I mean, you have countries, you have nation states on the one hand, and then you've got the people that live within them on the other hand. And so, I think it's important to make that differentiation. Like when you're talking about China, for example, typically you're talking about the nation of China and the government that controls it. But you also have the people of China, which really don't have much of an influence on that. So when, you know, I'm an anarchist, and so as an anarchist, I consider myself, a citizen of the world. You know, I'm just a human being. I happen to be born here. And so, now I'm an American. So, you know, I have to fly that banner, you know, and be all proud to be an American. But I just happen to be born here. I could have been born anywhere, but I was born here. And so people are just people. And I think if somebody wants to, travel to another place and work there, they should be able to. I think that the free market ought to determine wages. And if those wages create opportunities for people, those are just individual choices.
Well, but Drew, I don't want to get into economics too much. Actually, what I was thinking of is protecting our food supply. And China is one of the most polluted places on the planet. I just saw something yesterday that almost every drop of their groundwater is so contaminated that it can't be drunk.
Yeah.
So if they're producing food over there and shipping it here and then not labeling anything, so you don't need to know with TPP even what country your food came from, how are you going to be making an informed decision as a consumer, right? I mean, if they don't tell you where it came from, and that's where I have the problem. You know, do you want to be eating food that was cultivated in India? I know I wouldn't, with my knowledge. And just like, you know, food that is cultivated on the West Coast, we're still eating it. I mean, almonds are cultivated in California, but how hot are those almonds?
Yeah, I was grocery shopping yesterday. I needed to pick up some wine and cheese. And so I went over to the market, and so I was looking at the cheeses, and I was, you know, and the first bag I went to grab was some Kraft grated cheddar cheese, and I went to grab it, and I want to get a local brand, and so I was looking through to find the Tillamook cheese that comes out of Oregon, and then I'm like, oh yeah, but that could be contaminated with iodine 131, and so then I'm just like, yeah, but the Kraft stuff is probably made from like milk pus.
Yeah, it probably is too.
Right? And it, you know, and plus it's just this big megacorp and not a local industry. And so I'm like torn. And so I go, okay, I'm going to buy the local cheese, but I'm going to take it home and I'll test it with my Geiger counter, before we eat it. And at least I'll know, and it'll be interesting. So I bought the local cheese and I brought it home, and I did a 10-minute count with my Inspector EXP, you know, just to set the background radiation level, which was around 38, 39 CPMs. And then I opened up the bag and shook the cheese up a little bit and put the probe over the top with the cover off, and I didn't get a count that was higher than background. So it doesn't mean that it isn't radioactive. It just means that it isn't hotter than background.
Right.
So, and that's the problem with the new background radiation being so high now. It's so difficult to tell what's radioactive and what
and that's an easy way for them to say, hey, there's nothing to see here, right?
Oh, totally. It's just, you could have, radioactive material in there, like iodine 131 in the cheese, and you're going to eat it. You're going to have an internal emitter, or it's going to get taken up in your thyroid. And you don't know any different. It's so hard to tell now, you know, unless you get really sophisticated equipment.
Yeah, and it's really expensive. I know I looked into that, what is the device called? God, in the very beginning we were trying to buy one, but they were like a few $1,000. Mass spectrometer, yes. They were a few $1,000s or more. Weren't they like 15? And that's the only way really to get a good count of rads in food. But just by running your meter over it, you're really not getting a good representation. One of the things, go ahead.
There might be some opportunities now to have more places to test that sort of thing. At least over here where we're seeing the state of Oregon approving medical marijuana, one of the things is that the marijuana has to be tested to measure the THC level and to ensure that it doesn't have any contaminants in it. And so some of these guys are using mass spectrometers to do that sort of work. And so that could create some opportunities to get some inexpensive tests done. And I know a few people that are planning to set up labs to test medical marijuana. So I'm hoping that I could take advantage of that.
Yeah, put them in contact with me, and I'll set them up a database and a website to
that would be
post their findings, and we'll throw some ads on there for them so they make a few bucks for providing free info. Yeah. You know, I mean, we need that information. There's nobody that is doing that right now.
Right. Yeah, nobody. But perhaps that'll create an opportunity to get more information.
Yeah, big time.
Without having to spend a pile of money.
What I would like you to talk about, if you can, is some of this came up in chat yesterday, but in regards to ways that you can prep your soil. I mean, a lot of us now are starting our gardens for the year. Some of us late in the Northeast, down in Texas, they're already pretty far along, but you had some ways in the very beginning that you've discovered in your research for how to help remove some radiation from the soil, didn't you? And then there are different vitamins and minerals that you can supplement with that will help keep the radioactive equivalents out of your body as long as you have proper dosages careening through your veins, you know? So if
Right.
you can, let's talk about that for a few.
Yeah. Well, when I was researching this, it's been 3 years now. Over
3 plus.
Yeah. I'd found a study that the USDA had done, and they were trying to figure out how to use plants to clean up radioactive soil. And particularly, they wanted to clean up soil around nuclear power plants. And so during their research, they had discovered that calcium, magnesium, and potassium actually work to block the phytoextraction of cesium-137 by plants from contaminated soil. And, significantly, calcium played the biggest role. And
that was me.
Oh, okay. We lost the call. And so, there's some supplements out there you could buy at garden stores, like hydroponic stores. If you go to an indoor gardening or hydroponic store, like my little brother's company, Ladybug Indoor Gardens, you could find a product made by a company called Botanicare called CalMag. There's other companies that make this stuff as well, and you can make a watering tea with it. You blend it into your water and water your plants with it. And I haven't done any tests, to see, how well it works with blocking phytoextraction, but I try to mitigate at every point that I can, and one of the things that I don't grow my crops outdoors. I grow undercover in a greenhouse in a controlled environment. When this first started, I bought as much, soil as I could.
I did too. Pre-Fukushima soil. Yep.
Fukushima.
And they're still in my greenhouse. Actually, there's 2 big ones left.
Yeah, and I bought a whole pallet of pre-Fukushima worm castings so that I could continue to supplement my soil with that, because your soil that you buy, your potting soil is only good for about a season. And even if you're supplementing, and you'll often need to supplement with calcium, magnesium, potassium, iron. These are things that the plants require to grow well. And so, but even after doing that, even after a season, you'll get salt buildup, funguses, diseases get in the soil, and so you really need to shovel out all your soil from your beds and put in new soil. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I pushed mine for about 3 seasons, and then I noticed that my crops weren't doing as well. So I've been shoveling them out. So now I'm at this point where I'm going, oh man, well I've got to blend up some more soil, and I have a lot of material to make my soil. And you don't just take dirt, just normal dirt. Normal dirt doesn't have all the ingredients that your plants need to thrive. And so, it's really like your potting soil your best potting soil is really soilless. It has things in it like worm castings, and in some cases, material that helps hold, water, like,
peat.
You could have peat and, coconut coir, wood shavings, anything that'll hold in moisture, and then you need things in there like perlite and or pumice, things like that will also store moisture and create a surface for beneficial microbes to grow, and that helps release nutrients. And so there's soils out there that have different blends, and some need to be supplemented and some are good as they are. But it's really hard now to get pre-Fukushima, and a lot of these bagged soils that you can get have, fish fertilizer in them, or sea crustaceans, things that cut kelp, things that come from the ocean, which really help plants grow. But if you're trying to avoid radioactive contamination, it's really not the way to go. So I'm at this point now where I'm trying to decide whether I want to blend up some soil, and it's a lot of work, and then have to shovel that all back into my beds again, and then next year do the same. And so I've come to the conclusion that I'm just switching out my beds and putting in an aquaponics system. At least that way my fish make the fertilizer. I don't have to shovel any soil out of there. And from a standpoint of controlling the radiation, then I only have to deal with what's in the water. And, and you could handle that with, it depends on your water source, and you could, put on a zeolite filter if you wanted to be really
careful. I wanted to ask, yeah. Do they actually make them? Because I know at one point I was thinking about getting some big barrels and doing the rain barrel system to water some beds that I wanted to put under hoop houses. And as the hose came out of the barrel, I was thinking about taking like an old pair of pantyhose and putting zeolite into the pantyhose and then sliding that down into the hose itself. You know what I mean? And then put like a drip system on there. But do they have, at the time, there were no zeolite filters that I could find out there. Do they have them now?
One that I found was the Pure Effect water filter.
Oh, right. That's the only one that I'm aware of.
Yeah. If you go to my website, doublecrossradio.com, there's an affiliate link on there. So if you want to buy one, please buy it through my link.
Yeah, actually I might, cause you know what? I want to get one for, doing, household drinking water. I still don't have that.
Yeah, that was the only one that I found. I haven't checked recently. There could be more out there. And I don't know how easy it is to get replacement filters for that. I was talking to, Bob Tuskin about this months and months ago. It might have even been a year ago, and he was saying that it was hard to get replacement filters for those. I haven't needed to get a replacement filter yet, so I don't know how difficult it is. So that's one thing to check out before you spend your money. You might want to make sure that you get some replacement filters along with the order. And you could buy bagged zeolite clay, and make for like your water collection barrels, you just put some of that clay in the bottom of the barrels.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And theoretically it should.
Well, it's heavy. It's a particulate, so it will precipitate out, and it does sit.
Yeah, yeah.
I take my zeolite, but you gotta mix it up well. Yeah.
So those are some of the best solutions. If you're growing outside, sorry, Dan, but I've been on Bob's show a couple times. I'm just looking at Dan's comments in the chat here. But growing outdoors is risky, and if there is radioactive fallout, you're probably going to get some of it. You're going to get some cesium-137, but we've got to grow food. It's to the point now where this material is everywhere, and we can mitigate our exposure, but we can't completely eliminate it. And as time goes on, it just gets harder and harder and harder to keep that out of our food chain. And so, so that brings us to supplementation. And I'm not a doctor or anything, but you and I do as much research as we can into this stuff. And we were talking about this, yesterday, in the chat, while we were listening to Post Ignorance. But, I take, pre-Fukushima kelp tablets, and the, potassium iodine in there is supposed to help protect my thyroid from uptaking iodine 131. And I take a magnesium supplement, and that's supposed to help your bones, strengthens your bones, but it also helps to protect your bones from absorbing strontium-90.
Yeah, I was reading actually magnesium and calcium together too is something that is supposed to work pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah, it ought to.
But the three together, magnesium, potassium, and calcium, are what we really need.
Right. And then I think that potassium helps with the cesium. Cesium absorption helps to block it.
Into the muscles, yes.
Yeah.
Specifically the heart.
Yeah. So this is just information that I've learned from watching Dr. Busby's videos over the years. And so Kevin talks a lot of trash about Busby, but I think as far as supplementation goes, he was the first to address that and have some solutions out there. And I think he even helped to formulate some supplements, but he was highly criticized by people, I
know, that was kind of bad. Somebody who actually went that far using science and trying to do something to help people. And I mean, it does cost money to do that stuff. Everyone seems to think that everything should be free all the time because that's the way it should be, but somebody's got to pay for it.
Well, right. It has to be worthwhile.
And I mean, if someone put out something like that, I wouldn't have a problem. If it really worked, if it would really help protect you, I wouldn't have a problem spending a few bucks to buy some.
Right, and he didn't have to take his information and his knowledge and do anything with it. He could have just kept it to himself.
Or he could have just tossed it out there and said someone else do it.
Yeah. So, there has to be incentives to do these things, and none of us can live for free. Well, I don't know. There's a lot of people that are signed up for all sorts of government programs or whatnot. But I wake up in the morning with a desire to do things. And, and I want to survive this, and I want to help others survive this. And I've tried to adopt a business model that accomplishes that. So, ultimately I have to make a profit so that I can survive and thrive. And I tell people this all of the time that, we all know that there's some sort of major collapse, catastrophe, calamity on the way, and you should start, figuring out what your post-collapse career is going to be, and start working on that now, and start integrating it into your life. So if the shit does hit the fan, things don't change that much for you. You're already doing that thing that you do if there wasn't, a grid, or, if Yellowstone blew up, or, if there was 25 cities get nuked, all these threats, or a global pandemic and things like that, where society just starts to collapse. Things that we think about.
The pandemic is scaring me, actually. I'm telling you, I'm watching that very closely, because that could be something that they could start out so covertly, and if nothing else, maybe if the Ebola outbreak really has quieted down, it's very possible that was a dangling carrot out there to put it in your head, that there's really horrible stuff out there. And then this MERS thing, it's not that serious, but you should be taking it seriously, and look at how things spread, putting it into the forefront of your mentality, and then you file it away, so when it really does happen, everybody's ready to step in line.
Yeah. Yeah, when really,
and it's aided by them, of course, to really happen, but on a grand scale.
Yeah, and I'd say if you want to prepare for this, then don't prepare to go to the doctor.
No, they already told us in regards to emergency planning for pandemics. That's what I trained for here. That they won't let you in even in the hospital if you're already sick. By the way.
Yeah. Well.
They're not going to have the people. They don't have the staff.
It's just if this starts spreading, or there is some sort of a pandemic, and then it spreads to your neck of the woods, you need to be prepared to bug in, and that means having enough resources to seal yourself up in your home and stay there for a few weeks or months to see what happens. And, because a lot of us have bug out strategies and have our bug out bags and whatnot, but are you prepared to bug in if you need to?
Here's one question too. I wanted to ask you about that. If you remember at the very beginning of Fukushima happening, there were some scientific articles that came out when they had been finding these weird spider webs, would be the best way I could explain them, on spent fuel rods. Do you remember that? And there was some postulation that all this new radiation being dumped into the atmosphere might actually mutate viruses and bacteria, quickly or quicker than they naturally happen, and that we could be ending up with some major superbug problems.
Well, sure. Look what's going on in the Pacific off the coast of San Francisco. We've had that big die-off, shellfish dying, most of the seafloor covered with dead things. And there was an article on Energy News that I was reading, and they finally figured out the cause. And the cause is a very unusual form of phytoplankton that typically does not exist in that part of the world. It's very rare, usually isn't toxic, but in this case it has been toxic, and it's been so toxic that it's altered the genome of some of the shellfish, and it could have been an adaptation by the shellfish to try to survive the contamination. They're not sure yet, but that's really weird. That's strange. I mean, was it caused by Fukushima? I have no idea, what made that happen. And I doubt that we'll know. I doubt that anybody will come out and say, oh yeah, it was, radioactive fallout that caused this.
No, they'll never say that.
No.
I mean, wait, let's do an example. How about Hanford and the most toxic radioactive material, if not in the northern hemisphere, because it is for certain in the entire planet, leaking into the groundwater, into the Columbia River. We have these clusters of this rare disorder of children being born without brains and things. And I remember Libby in one of her shows, Nuclear Hot Seat, saying that the only other place that they'd ever seen that is in Iraq after using depleted uranium. And I see an MSM news clip or two, nowhere in there when they're reporting these clusters do they mention Hanford. They were all postulating that it was pesticide use.
Sure.
I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? So no, there's always going to be plausible deniability. It'll never be the radiation, and they'll never tell you how bad it is. I mean, right now we got major ass issues happening at WIP. I mean, major. Fukushima on U.S. soil yet to come, people. And this maybe we're not going to have melting cores, but we're going to have all this, militarized Manhattan Project, uranium, plutonium, and heavier waste in exploding barrels if they don't take care of this issue, right? You saw that whole thing with the kitty litter and whatever, right? And putting that in, and it was, the old kitty litter was clay-based, zeolite-based, and it stabilized the material. But then some smart person decided they were going to use new litter that was quote-unquote green, which I was like, God, let's hope it wasn't done through an RFP on FBO.gov looking for a new provider of, green litter, because the federal government's going to go green. Because they're saying that if that's in all those barrels, we are in big time problem. That waste at WIP is from Hanford, from Flat Rocks in Idaho, and from Los Alamos in New Mexico.
Yeah. And Hanford's been leaking since the early 1960s. There's a website called Hanford Challenge, and I don't know if they've got this linked in. It's easier if you just search it. It's the Hanford X-Files, and it talks about all sorts of weird things that have gone on over there over the past 40, 50 years, and including alligator farming that they were doing.
Oh God!
Yeah, really weird stuff. But the Hanford site is on a big plain of basalt, and we all know that basalt is very porous, so it's easy for liquid to leach out into the Columbia River. And there were reports all the way back in the 1960s of radioactive material leaking out of there into the Columbia River and ultimately ending up in the Pacific Ocean. There was a whale that was found dead off the Oregon coast, and it tested positive for radioactive isotopes that were Hanford specific. And there was a worker too in the 1960s that he well, he was radioactive. So, and they found the same isotopes inside of him that were found in that whale. And it turned out he'd been, I think he was harvesting clams off the Washington coast, and had eaten the clams and had ingested this radioactive material. So this has been going on for a long time, for almost as long as they've been storing nuclear waste up there. It's been leaking, and it's a huge farming region up there.
I was just going to ask that. So if somebody lives up in the Washington area, is there any hope to do farming in the soil? I mean, this is kind of one of the reasons why you've gone to aquaponics.
Yeah, well, just do a flyover with Google on there, and you can see all the farms around the area. I mean, the site where Hanford is looks like a wasteland, and it really is. But just right next to it, you get down into the Columbia River Valley, and you have all these farms. There's a lot of grapes grown up there, and apples, and there's vineyards up there, and some of the most popular wines are produced there.
Wow. Yeah.
I go out of my way not to buy wines that are produced up there in that region. And it's only been recently that I realized, I'm like, oh wow, I was looking on the map where some of these wines are produced, where the grapes are grown, and I just freaked out. I mean, they're just right down the river from Hanford. And then there's that dam
with the big 65-foot crack. Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. And I don't see how they're gonna clean this up, how they're gonna deal with it. There was an explosion recently in the plutonium finishing building a couple of weeks ago, and they've tried to cover it up. They've been trying to hire inexperienced people that won't blow the whistle to work up there, and this seems to be not, this type of thing isn't just specific to TEPCO. It seems to be just part of the culture within the nuclear power and nuclear waste disposal industry as a whole, to try to conceal the problems with dealing with this material. And it's because there's no way to solve this. I get emails sometimes from a guy who I think listens to us. I think he lives in the UK, and he says he has experience in underground nuclear waste disposal, and he's retired now. And he thinks that the Fukushima disaster could be solved using scalar technology, and that a scalar ray could freeze the corium and enable them to remove it and bury it somewhere. I don't know anything about this stuff, so I don't know.
I have seen that a few times that they've talked about, where you might be able to also create some sort of force field around it. I mean, like I've said before, just because we don't have it now or we don't understand the technology doesn't mean it can't be done. Because
right, yeah.
How long ago was it that we had, let's say, graphics on a computer, a graphical interface? I mean, before it used to just be green screen and then black screen command line, But just because we didn't have it didn't mean it wasn't possible at some point. So, I mean, maybe, right. But currently right now I am not aware of any traditional solution that we have that will fix what's going on.
Well, apparently this guy has approached Gunderson and others about the solution, and nobody communicates with him. And so, I don't know, he might just be full of it. He sends me lists of books I need to read, and I'm not a scientist. I don't have a background in this stuff. I learned what I know by the seat of my pants, just trying to survive the fallout. So, there's no way I'm going to be able to develop some sort of technology that would freeze the corium right. Or even advise somebody. So I don't know. He needs to talk to the right people, I suppose. And so I'm throwing it out there. If the right person is listening, there you go. Contact me if you want to get in contact with this guy.
That's awesome. Well, listen, Drew, we got about just over a minute or two left before we have to wrap it up. So if there was anything out of the last 3 years that you've learned, I mean, the entire direction of your life changed because of Fukushima. You're here now because of Fukushima. You've made all kinds of advancements. I mean, you've changed your entire industry. You know, you've been very successful at it. What's probably one of the most important things you've learned that you could give out to the audience for how to keep yourself safe or, you know, thrive in the environment that we have right now as opposed to giving up on it?
Well, I'd say use common sense. Like, stay out of the rain.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's just like wearing a hat if you're out on a boat on a sunny day. You know, it's just, you know, it's just common sense things. You wear a coat when it's cold outside. You know, you wear boots when you're out in the snow. It's just common sense. I mean, you can't see the radiation. You know, so it's easy to forget that it's there. But you know, we still need to live our lives, though. You know, you still, you know, life is dangerous. You're not going to live forever. So, you know, there's a point where you could take it too far. So you still have, you can't control everything. There's only so much you could do, but there are some common sense things that you could do as well. You know, stay out of the rain. Don't eat sushi.
Yeah, don't eat sushi. I see a lot of people still saying that they enjoy it and, they eat it, and that's just kind of silly.
Yeah, completely insane. There's no point in putting yourself at risk like that. There's other stuff that you could eat that tastes great too.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, your show is on Thursday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, called Double Cross Radio. Is Chuck back yet? Chuck back from vacation?
Chuck will be back from Ecuador, and this week we'll have Tom McCurgan from Southern Oregon Oath Keepers on the show, and I will also be joined by Gary Lake, and we'll be talking about Jefferson Republic.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. And Thursday nights are always a fun night, just like every night on UCY, right?
Exactly. And then on May 22nd, I'll have Fritz Springmeier back on.
Oh, good, good. With some updates just before the Bilderbergers.
Exactly.
All right. Well, Drew, thank you so much for hanging out with me this morning. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Make sure you stick around. Today is Wednesday. So we have Will Roberts, John Stokes, Jack Blood, Josh at 6 p.m., Dana Martin at 8, Jim at Funky at 9, and then Nick and DB at 11. All right, Drew, enjoy your Wednesday, and I will catch up with you guys later. Take care.